Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manu Matthew. I represent the editorial department of Images Group and India Retailing. And I'm delighted to welcome you to today's exciting thought leadership webinar on next level engagement where data meets customer loyalty. In this session, we'll explore how leading brands like Reliance, Marks and Spencer, Tata Click are using unified data, smart automation, and omnichannel strategies to drive deeper customer engagement and thereby enhancing personalization. So if you have any question during the webinar, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and then maybe we'll address it after the fireside chat is over. So without any further ado, let me first introduce my speakers to you. We have Nicholas Kontopoulos, Vice President of Marketing for Twilio, Asia Pacific and Japan, and we have Abhishek Lal, Chief Digital Officer, Marks and Spencer Reliance India Private Limited. We'll be joined by Suman Guha, who is actually in a meeting, and he'll join us soon. So he heads the he is the CPTO for Tata Click Luxury. So I guess Nicholas, I can pass on the mic to you, and then maybe you can start with your basic introduction of what do you do at Twilio, and maybe you can lead the chat. Thank you.
No, thank you, Manu, and really appreciate everyone joining us today. I'm super excited to be hosting today's discussion, and I really want to welcome you all because I know you're taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us. I'm looking forward to geeking out on the topic we've got on display today. We're going to explore some really, hopefully, great and useful ideas that you can take back into your business and hopefully explore further in driving, real transformational change in how we engage our customers, because we are operating in a really hyper-connected world today. Customer engagement is constantly changing and evolving, and it's been driven by us as consumers because we're constantly changing in terms of what we expect and what we want from the brands that are servicing us. And that's why, really we want to explore really how do we reimagine customer engagement, especially with all of the change that's going on around us in terms of, the power of AI and what it's enabling us to do, not just as consumers, but also employees serving those consumers. So really, I've got the distinct pleasure today to host a great conversation. We've got Abhishek Lal, Chief Digital Officer from Marks and Spencer's Reliance India, with us today. What an amazing set of credentials he has. He's got over 25 years of experience, really is a seasoned digital transformational leader. And I'm really looking forward to the conversations we're going to have, because I'm the beneficiary of being able to host these because I learned so much from my panelists. So really looking forward to our conversation. And as indicated earlier, we'll have Suman joining us, who's the Chief Product and Technology Officer from Tata, joining hopefully shortly as well. And again, impressive credentials in terms of his experience. So really looking forward to it. Welcome, Abhishek. Thank you for taking time out to join us today. Maybe do you want to add some additional words in terms of the introduction from your side?
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Manu, for having me here. And the pleasure is also mine. And the learning is always mutual. So I look forward to learning also some basics about customer engagement from our interaction going forward. So what I do is, yes, I've been in digital e-commerce technology for quite some time now, and current role is about technology, data, customers, e-commerce as a business, and AI, which is also, I'm very passionate about AI. Currently doing my PhD in AI bias, which is something which I'm analyzing from an Indian perspective from large language models. But yes, looking forward to the conversation and looking forward to learning some new things coming out of it.
Awesome. And if you've got questions, feel free, as Manu said, post them in the chat, and we'll get to some of those as we go through the session. But Abhishek, I think when we connected the other day, I shared with you a real deep passion when it comes to technology. But, what I don't want us to start at technology. I actually want to start where I think we need to start, which is really exploring sort of the topic of people. And, how do we empower our workforces ultimately to develop deeper connections with our customers? And, and then we will hopefully explore also the other area that I think is critical if we're going to drive transformational change, which is process, right? What process? How do we reimagine business processes and then ultimately use technology to become an enabler of that transformation. So really, let's start with the people side of the equation, and I'll maybe start with just a reference to some data that we've generated at Twilio. We commission a research every year called the State of Customer Engagement Report, and last year what we found is 81% of brands believe that they deeply understand their customers. Now, here's the rub. Only 46% of those customers agree that they deal with. So there's often a delta between how we think we're performing and ultimately what customers think of us. And a big important part of our ability to deliver great customer experiences ultimately is our ability to enable our people to deliver on the brand promises we're making to those customers. So maybe as a first question for you and I to kick off and explore is, given the significant shift in customer expectations for real-time and consistent sort of engagement, how do we ensure that our marketing, customer service, sales, and even back office teams are being equipped to meet these demands and ultimately established and hopefully maintain a loyalty with customers? Yeah, so maybe we could kick off there.
Sure. I think you rightly said customer is the centerpiece of the equation. And if I take a step back, it's basically the product, whatever you're selling, and the customer. Rest everyone in the organization is trying to make that marriage happen. Yeah.
Yes.
So that is the role of everyone in the organization, to get the product to the customer or the customer to the product. And hence the whole structure around how the culture is created, focusing on the customer. Then there is, of course, another data point which you mentioned is organizations think they have very loyal customers. Data says otherwise, that customers have options, they can go anywhere, and customers think they will go wherever they find the best value, the best product, whatever suits them. So everyone has a different perception of maybe the same absolute truth. To enable it, cultural and people inside the organization is one of the key resource. I think I'll give you an example is, if the goal is structured around customer retention instead of just sales, it will create a different set of culture. Eventually, the corollary is that customer retention would lead to higher sales. If the goal is customer retention, then it also centers around what kind of products you're making. Then the products kind of become more customer centric, vis-a-vis saying we have this product because we are an X brand and we are going to sell this irrespective of the customers, whether they decide to buy or not. So this question, this approach of ultimately challenges the whole organization to be more centric towards the customers, right from the back end office roles to the front end sales roles. Front end sales roles have evolved, right? It's not human selling anymore. It is machines recommending products across machine based channels, which could be an Instagram, which could be a Facebook, it could be a website, it could be an app, and eventually a human on the other side responding to these messages or these stimuli which they are getting. And the quality of the stimuli when they are sent determines the whole quality of interaction. So now there are more gaps between a previously human to human interaction. It is not human to human anymore. So that aspect becomes even more critical of how you structure the whole machine plus human equation in the organization.
Yeah, I mean, so much good stuff there. Like, I love the reference in terms of the importance of culture and building, uh, a culture that really is anchored against wanting to deliver great experiences for the customer. One of my favorite quotes is from Steve Jobs. He used to say, "Start with the customer experience and work back to technology," right? And I think that's got to be at the heart. But also, the employees engaging those customers need to be factored in. I think that's an area that I often see forgotten, is the enablement and empowering of customers to be employees to serve their customers. Is that something you see is still a challenge when you look across different industries? And if so, what are some ways that you think we could start thinking about rectifying any challenges that that businesses have there in empowering their customers? I mean, for example, I think data is really at the heart of our ability to deliver really great experiences, right? So as someone who's passionate about data and AI, maybe reframe the question this way: how does leveraging unified customer data and ultimately AI empower employees to move beyond a transactional relationship? Maybe we can come at it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think very nicely said in terms of how does AI support or empower customers and employees. Uh, Again, if we look at the history, getting information sometime back was very, very challenging. The quality of information, let's say you're speaking with a customer, you have no history on what the customer has shopped, what the customer has preferences are. If you are a marketeer and if you are wanting to target a customer, it was very difficult to get around, getting that information right. I remember a time when I used to bid Google AdWords with my own hands. It was a
Yeah.
machine. You could say at night the bid keyword is going to be lesser, so you would program your words, and you were firing blind.
Yeah.
You were not seeing who's looking at your keywords, and eventually the next day you were calculating and seeing, okay, I bid on so many keywords, so many clicks came through, and I got that much business. Now that has all advanced into a machine learning algorithm. The Google ads would kind of go and reprogram themselves, present them to the customers. Now, all this is powered by data in the back, right?
Mm,
All the tools, all the machines, whether it's the own e-commerce site, whether it's the retail store, whether it is the marketing platforms like Google or Meta, they all are collecting data. But the central challenge today towards customer empowerment or organization empowerment or employee empowerment is the quality of data,
mhm,
the master data, and how it is kind of maintained and how it is evolved. So, in some use cases, it's not an easy access. In some use cases, the access is there, but you can't use that information, is not usable at the spur of a moment. I think lookalike audiences is a very great example. Like you have a set of customers, and the marketing tools will create a lookalike audience to match that set of customers
yeah.
to get you new customers on base. But if your base data set, so AI is as good as the model you train it on. That is the fundamental of any machine learning tool today. How does that model get trained? What is the quality of your central data is directly proportional to your effectiveness and empowerment of customers. And therein lies the biggest opportunity slash challenge, that how would you do that? Second is the whole management information systems. Now I'm privy to a lot of conversations around AI agents, right? Conversational analytics. You can actually ask the machine or the tool that this store is got, how do I increase sales in this store? And you might get an answer, stock more of this product in this color, and this would lead to an X% increase in sales. So once you've got the data right, the second piece is around how you access that data to make quick decisions. Gone are the days of creating Excels and pivots. Organizations still haven't moved. Technology has moved. This is the age of agentic AI. Everybody's into AI agents. Not so much the organizations today, but that's the big gap and the potential I see. So faster data and better quality data is the two-step answer to what you just said.
No, I love that. And again, it's you hit on one of my passion topics, data, right? Not a new saying, but someone had said it much smarter than me, said it a while back, but it's the new oil of the world, right? The new oil that powers our businesses. But the biggest inhibitor I've experienced in this, whether it's within the companies I work with or the customers I've been serving, is the fragmentation of that data. Gartner coined a term which I loved a few years back, dark data, right? They talk about dark data being the data that's trapped in all of these different silos of an organization. And that often is as a result of people wrapping their arms around it, right? Different departments not wanting to share their data with internally. So is that is that a problem that you still see in businesses? And if so, what are ways you've worked as a CDO or as someone who's passionate about unlocking the value of data? What are some ways folks that are listening today could go about driving change and being able to unify the right data to drive that better interaction with their customers?
Yeah, so I think the answer to that lies in democratization of data.
Hmm.
Everybody should be able to access what they need.
Hmm.
And this is further enabled by an LLM kind of an approach, where you plug everything into one resource and then anyone and everyone can ask questions. depending on what their level in the organization is. So certain sensitive financial data can be revealed to an X level of organization. Certain operational data can be revealed at whatever level. Previous approach had been that data used to sit in silos. It used to flow through data lakes. Over the data lakes, you had different BI tools, whether it's a Microsoft BI tool or whether it was any other Tableau or whatever you like to call it. And then people would use to make reports, and then they would use these reports and look at three other reports, download them, combine them into an Excel. Most of the point, right? So you come back to square one. Now, I think it's a lot easier. Provided you have the basic data architecture in place. If you have a CDP or a data lake which captures all your transactions, all your master data in a place, it's easier to build a conversational model on top of it. And then that enables anyone to ask anything. And so the silos are actually broken. The data is more democratized when we look at the whole large language models or the small language models, which we can create within our organization for our organization. It relates to the first point, which I said is about the speed of data availability and the
Yeah.
quality of data availability to make decisions. So if you are actually wanting to take a decision that I want to send an X amount of products to a store, you can actually also see the profitability of those products at the same time, just as an example. A domain which would have been with finance earlier, profitability, a domain which would have been with your buying and merchandising team, which is the product earlier. Now anyone and everyone can see the impact of one decision right up to the bottom line and the top line. So this could be the approach which could be there going forward.
And looking ahead, obviously, with all this change, how do you see organizations preparing their workforce to work more effectively and collaborating around both data and emerging technologies, like conversational AI, for example, to really augment the human-led customer engagement? Because yes, there's going to be a place for AI agents to play a role in engaging, and certainly will do with either transactional, or even, some complex processes. But humans will often want to still interact with a human, and I'm a big advocate for businesses thinking now about how do they not only you create and deploy AI agents that can maybe provide that initial interaction for more transactional type work, but there's an importance to create off ramps to also maybe have human support, and then those employees also can be beneficiaries of AI in supporting them through a co-pilot type model. So yeah, again, my question there would be what ways can organizations start to prepare their workforce to become more effective in using AI capabilities in the way they design their customer engagement strategies? Yeah.
Yeah. So sometime back, there was a study published in India that 65% of the people have no idea what AI is.
Mm-hmm.
So using it is a very, very far cry. So right now we are talking of awareness. And then there is what we are doing in our organization is a 3 or 4 step approach. The first is creating awareness of how we can use it. And we've started a series of conversations which I have. It's a kind of a fireside chat, which is called the AI Blueprint, which the whole organization tunes in, and we pick up various different aspects of AI and how they can impact workforce, how they can impact careers, and we unpack them. Why this is important is the awareness is the first stage, because currently there is a gap. The organizations believe they want to use X tools, they want to target customers using those tools. The employees think that they can actually advance by doing what they are doing, the capabilities. And there was a very interesting research paper which was published by Harvard Business School, which said that AI is your cybernetic teammate in your competition. It was based on a study at Procter and Gamble, and wherein they realized that teams which used AI were emotionally happier, they were delivering better results, and they were delivering better results cross functionally with lesser number of inputs or lesser number of people, right? So it's a proven fact that it has to be blended into daily working. The first stage is awareness because there is always fear of technology. I remember the same conversations about e-commerce taking over retail used to happen 15 years back, right?
Yeah.
No, nobody talks about it anymore, right? It's
No.
become a complementary thing because customer is at the center, always has been. Going back to our first conversation, we are finding better ways to connect with the customer. And this is just a tool which enables it. So first is awareness, second is training. And like AI agents to a lot of people is still rocket science.
Yeah.
Whereas you can watch a 3 hour video on YouTube today, use a software tool like Cursor and make your own AI agent in 1 hour's time. Yeah, so there is a gap in perception and there is a gap in the practical aspect. So you can make your own AI agent to do your daily stuff today. If you want to browse the news, if you want to browse the stock market, it's very, very easy. So first is awareness, second is training and bridging this fear and this perception gap. And the third is actual access to tool sets. If you have technologies which the organization is onboarding, and how do people kind of use it, and how does it connect with the variety of people, like the SLM or the LLM example I gave. So everyone's using ChatGPT today. Can you have a ChatGPT like thing in the organization which breaks silos? So 3 or 4 step process is there to enable the organizations to do this. Yeah.
No, I love that. Again, the awareness piece. I often say, you have to ask the question, is your business AI ready? Like, really is a good starting point. And to your point, then thinking about how do you raise awareness within your workforce, ultimately providing the capabilities for them to start to experiment and play with the tools to understand how they can benefit. And I certainly, this is something we did at Twilio. Like, I remember Jeff, who was the CEO at the time, brought OpenAI ChatGPT instance into the business quite quickly, loaded up our knowledge base into it, and enabled us to start using it as a tool. So yeah, anyone listening here, I think based on what Abhishek said and even my experiences, I would just start getting experience and understanding how to use it. I've seen at least a 20% increase in productivity in terms of my ability to use AI to remove that more transactional type work, right, Abhishek? That's where you can actually see a net benefit quite early on if you use it smartly. And that then frees up capacity and time for you to think more strategically on or open up areas of capability within your teams that you couldn't do before because you didn't have the headcount, right? Because the headcount was tied up with a lot of transactional work. Would you agree? I think this is where some of the net benefit of bringing AI and getting your teams up to speed with how they could use it can actually drive a net benefit for them, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's about people doing more in less
yeah.
instead of lesser set of people doing more tasks.
Yeah, because I think often people get fearful of it, and yes, it's going to change how we work and what we do, but I actually feel that there's a more upside than there is downside in that respect. Uh, I'd like to just pivot slightly now over to thinking about how do we streamline our journeys for customers, for ultimately lasting loyalty. We talked a little bit about people, but the next sort of pillar is really then thinking about process and implementing AI effectively in customer experience isn't just about the technology itself. It's really about reimagining and optimizing the underlying processes that ultimately govern our customer interactions, for example. We've touched on sort of the fragmented data and inefficient workflows, and really the lack of clear AI integration strategies can really derail even the best and most promising sort of initiatives. So again, when we talk to customers about this, what we found is in our survey that, you know, the I think it was 1 in 4 brands strongly agree that they possess the necessary tools to understand their customers. And ultimately, for me, that underscores that there are still real breaks in process and lack of maybe unified sort of strategies in how businesses work together. So with that in mind, with customer data often fragmented, what processes do you think are essential in stitching together disparate data sources to create a more unified view? You sort of touched on this earlier. You were talking about, that being one of the challenges, and obviously AI is only as good as the data. So what are some of the processes that are essential in your mind? Like when you think about you're driving digital transformation inside of businesses, where do you look for quick wins for businesses, and what could be some quick wins that folks that are listening to today that could see them bring data together in a smarter way for them to improve the way they engage their customers?
So understanding customers, and a lot of organizations believe they understand their customers.
Mm,
I think understanding has different shades. I'll give you an example of an experiment I did. So the way to segment customers is usually people do RFM matrix, like they'll say a recency, frequency, and the purchase value, which basically gives you 9 segments of customers. It's a 3 by 3 grid. And then you say that this person has purchased recently, but has only purchased one time and stuff. So I did an experiment using a machine learning algorithm. Sorry for using a technical term. It's called k-means clustering. So instead of just inputting 3 variables, you input about 100 variables into it, right from where the customer shopped, what did they buy, what time did they buy, how much purchase they have done. And we asked that algorithm, can you now create clusters of customers? So it actually goes and optimizes. So it took about 1 million customers, and it said, sorry, actually there are not, there's no RFM cluster here, but you've got about 15, 16 set of customer sets, which are very unique propositions. Some will only buy this product and combine it with another product and they will buy more. You don't see this kind of richness when you
mm,
just do a recency frequency matrix.
mhm,
It's basically more of the quantitative. When did you buy? What did you buy? How many times did you buy? And as a result of the equation, what is the value you ended up paying? One small example I'm giving of what you just said about how it can change the customer understanding. People who do RFM also believe they understand customers,
mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
the lens they would look at it is very myopic. It has got a fewer variables. The second set, which has the machine actually, or the algorithm segmented customers into 15 or 16 buckets, also is understanding their customer, but the depth of your understanding has significantly increased. Hence,
Mhm,
the quality of your communication becomes better. And then the quality of whatever metric you would like to measure, a CTR or a conversion, also improves. So, from being a shotgun approach to a very effective telescopic hunting rifle approach. So, this is the intervention which a technology or which an AI can bring in. So, and a lot of tools like yourself today have kind it automated, and you can create your own journeys, you can create your own customer set. So the organization need not worry on writing a code or an algorithm today. But the what I want to emphasize is, by using this kind of technology, the quality goes up, which basically means I'm always concerned about ROAS, how much money I spend and how much money I make.
yeah.
That kind of improves significantly.
100%. And I love what you shared there because, again, I think we're moving beyond the world of personalization to individualization now. I think actually, if you're not personalizing at scale now, you're actually already behind the 8 ball. I think what the next frontier is, and you just spoke about this, is the ability to really individualize that engagement experience through richer insights and segmentation and understanding of the prospects. And again, with the fusion of sort of predictive AI and generative AI coming together, is now going to enable us to create much more tailored experiences right through to the content that we use to engage, whether that's through an email, through text chat, through to a conversation you're having with an AI, or an a human assisted interaction that's powered also or assisted through an AI process. So I love that. How do you measure effectiveness though of your data driven personalization? Have you got any tips there? What are sort of ways that folks, as they start to work through this, what are good ways of measuring the effectiveness of your data driven personalization approach?
So I think the one and only measure is return on investment,
No,
which is one solid measure which doesn't change over time.
no.
But between that and getting there, there are different measures. It's the engagement piece. Now, if you have an app and the customers do not open the app, right, after 30-35 days, the app store will actually stop showing the notifications. And after some time, today we see on the phones, the app automatically gets taken off. So it just dies off. You have to keep customer engaged. So to get to the profitability, you have to have engagement, which is an important metric. To have an engagement, how would you measure it? Is the quality of messages you are sending, and is the customer opening your message, whether it's a notification, whether it's an SMS, whether it's an email or not. Then the further metric is the quality of content on those messages. What are they actually reacting to? So what I've built here is a chain. The lowest piece here is the quality, what content you are posting, how you're sending it, what is the engagement level, which eventually is the sales or the ROAS or the return on investment you like. So there are multiple metrics in each stage, and keep tweaking with these metrics results to the ultimate formula of a high return on investment.
And with just if I double click into that also, when I'm thinking about I mean, for the longest time, marketers in particular have been, chasing, using, I should say, third-party data. We've now moved into an era where I think the increasing importance is on first-party data. And we also talk about zero-party data. I'm not sure if that's something you're familiar with or not. Just let me know. But when we talk about zero-party data, we're talking about the ability to tap into data that I'm willingly sharing with you. Whereas first-party data is sort of a mashup between, it could be my clickstream, my order, past order history, etc. But zero-party data for me is the new richest form of data where I'm actually sharing that, knowing I'm giving it to you, but you're using that in a way that can tailor the experience more richly for me. Is this an area that you are thinking and seeing as the new frontier for businesses that really want to drive deeper connections with their customers, is moving away from third-party data? Or do you still think third-party data plays a big role in the engagement experience?
So I think it depends on what stage the organization is and what is the strategic objective. Example, if the organization wants to aggressively acquire new customers, has a very low current customer base, which implies that their first party data or zero party data is less, third party makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
My experience has been that third party data is also the least effective in terms of
Yeah.
getting results. And going back to the initial conversation, first party or zero party is where the highest potential is, because that is where you already know the customer, can build an algorithm or can which can create a picture or an image of that individualistic personalization, mass personalization for you. So it's a one-to-one relationship now. It's earlier it was one-to-many relationship. So effectiveness of first party or zero party in terms of returns is the highest today. Third party is a kind of a long shot. You want to carry on spending X amount of money for an acquisition. But necessarily that acquisition might happen, but retention may or may not happen.
Yeah.
Please
No,
focus on the customers. Sorry. Focus on the customers which are with you, and maybe they can shop a lot more. So I am a firm believer on first party and zero party. I think that's where the whole potential lies, because it has not been realized 100%. Third
yeah.
party could be a long strategic tail end offshoot if an organization wants to retain it. Please.
No, I love that. And I couldn't agree more, because I think the more trust you build with your customers, there is going to be a more willingness for them to share data with them. But again, you've got to do it responsibly, right? I think this is an area that I really do emphasize, is that um, using that data in a way that actually sees you having a service orientated mindset in how you engage, right? I think this is Abhishek, where there's a real responsibility on businesses that because let's be honest, our consumers are getting more smarter and savvier in how and understand how their data is being used, right? And I think we need to be mindful of that, because if they feel it's not being used in a way that's generally got their interests at heart, they've got other options to where they can go. Their loyalty can slip away, right? Yeah. So one area I'd also like, now that we're sort of geeking out a little bit on the technology side, obviously technology forms the backbone of any successful AI-powered customer experience transformation, whether that's from robust infrastructure to, picking the right technology ecosystem. Again, when we look at our research in this space, 7 out of 10 companies are already using AI in terms of the personalize their content and marketing, emphasizing that a lot of brands are pushing into this area at different levels of maturity. But I guess my question to you, Abhishek, in terms of, again, not just in your current role, but if you look across your peer group and other industries, what are the foundational technology investments and automation tools that are really going to be critical moving forward to enabling businesses to really drive richer, personalized, individualized experiences? What type of technologies do we need to be thinking about in order to bring them together in a way that can really drive that change in customer engagement experience?
Yeah, so I'll address the responsible towards customer part also, because you mentioned that before this question.
Mhm.
I think responsible AI or responsible technology is one of the biggest things in the industry today. And being responsible means two or three things. One is sharing transparently what you are capturing, sharing transparently how you are going to use it, and third, allowing customers to exit or delete their data if they so choose. This
Yeah.
is the biggest challenge in AI today, because once in, never out. And there are that's what's said about AI. There is uh, better regulations in Europe around this, which is actually also stymied the growth of AI in Europe. There are lesser regulations in the US, but it's a big ask. There is some regulations which might happen in India, which is not there currently. So being responsible is at the heart of the system which we are going to build, or which an organization should build. It all starts with collecting data, so pipelines and master data management, because when we see that data is not an absolute truth, you are capturing an X amount of fields, they go from one piece to another, half the thing disappears, and 16-digit alphabet field becomes 8, it gets truncated because your technology does not match. So
Yes.
managing the master data, having the data pipelines, and having a data repository, somebody can call it a data lake, someone would call it a customer data platform, a CDP, is one of the foundations of building anything today, whether it is from a marketing point of view or it's a communication point of view. On top of it comes the layers of multiple tools which are available today. You can have a separate set of tools which create your audiences, and a separate set of tools, maybe choose one email or SMS or notification provider, or have an integrated tool which does it for you.
Mm.
One important part is that changing tool set is very, very difficult, because each tool starts from zero. It kind of starts capturing tokens. So if you have one tool today which has got 1 million people in the data set, a new tool implemented tomorrow is not going to start from 1 million. It might start from zero. So
Mm.
there has to be, why I said this, there's a very important long-term view of where you want to be 5 years from now, which should govern this decision today, that what technology are you going to deploy, which means two things. One is a view on how technology is going to evolve. It means that someone could be telling that to you, there could be a partner doing this for you, you might not have that vision. And second vision is where you want to be as a business 5 years from now, because changing is very expensive, it is highly inefficient. So there are three, four layers. More important than the technological layer is the trust layer, which is responsibility, and the strategy layer of what you want to do 5 years from now.
I I love that. I think it strikes a chord with me because I often talk about, when I'm talking to clients or folks that are embarking on this journey, the need to think big but start small. But the think big part is that 5-year view, where you need to have a bigger vision that you're tying to in that respect. Going back to sort of the just Steve Jobs sort of reference as well, start with the customer, work back to the tech is sort of part of that. Uh, and I think in terms of the previous comment that you were making around, transparency and accountability, responsibility. I think, especially when it comes to AI as well, I just wanted to pick up on that. I think that was a really important point that I'd love listeners today to really take away. I think that's going to be absolutely critical. I love what you shared about, and I hadn't thought about this, the fact that we're sharing a lot of data with these AI tools, right? So yeah, if I give you my email address, my phone number, except my address, I can ask you to remove that. I can opt out or opt in. But the data I'm sharing with ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., at the moment is basically one directional, right? I mean, I get an output, but I can't pull that data back. So that's an interesting thought in terms of how you solve for that. Is there already pathways being created for businesses to navigate that? Have you seen that start to manifest yet in terms of actual solutions, or is that a still yet to be figured out? Yeah.
They are actual solutions coming into the market. And
Okay.
so when organizations are using LLMs, they are building their own layer in the middle, which does not share data or shares it in an encrypted manner with the LLMs.
Nice.
There is also a concept called federated learning,
Hmm.
that the all the data resides on your system. The tools learns from it but does not take any data back. So you have trained the algorithm
Yeah.
is not aware of what it is. So you can
Yeah.
use the algorithm so it's called federated learning. It's like a federal system. All the information sits with you. So the more and more trend is that the organizations are building structures retaining control of their data. Then, of course, there is small language models. You build a model only for yourself within your organization. So you don't have to rely on a chat GPT API or a Gemini API to process that. So you build your own model. But then that also means that the quantum of data or the tokens, as they say in the LLM world, is a lot lesser, because otherwise the cost is going to go through the roof of money. There are already tools here. Legality kind of is now lagging behind it. There are no laws governing this, that how it's going to work, because of course, in truth, no one has an answer.
No.
How can you delete information from ChatGPT? If you ask ChatGPT, even they themselves don't have an answer. But of course, it's WIP.
But I think an important message there is that we need to be thinking about this as we embark on the journey. I think better to be proactively ahead of the curve and regulations than finding yourself scrambling to have to change up your whole business model. So I really love that insight. That really struck a chord with me. So really appreciate that. I know we're coming up on time. So I've actually got and we've covered a lot of ground here today. Like, there's so many great nuggets that you've shared. Uh, I'd like to end with just maybe a question to you. What obviously things are changing all the time. Customer experience, AI. What are your what are the influences or resources that you consume or listen to stay abreast of what's happening? Is there any tips of in terms of podcasts or publications that you often consume that folks can maybe tap into to stay abreast?
Yeah, I think my favorite publication is Substack.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I am not on Instagram as much as I'm on Substack. And so this is the beauty of whole learning writing piece. So earlier people, it was you had to go and get a book and read a book and read the whole book to get to a gist of thing. But then there was, of course, Medium, where people used to write. But my go-to thing is Substack today. And from there you get a lot of ideas, where then you can move to different podcasts which are there. And there are a lot of great authors on
Oh
Substack.
yeah, Substack's amazing. Actually, as soon as you said that, I was like, we've got a lot in common in that respect as well. I love going there. There's some really great thinkers.
I would definitely recommend any to people who are listening to give it a shot. And
Yeah,
and it's got an amazing algorithm. And
yeah,
I would also say it's very unbiased in what it publishes. There's absolute freedom for people to write whatever they choose to write. It is
yeah.
not governed by big tech in terms of,
Exactly.
yeah, it's very,
Actually, it's a really important point because that you get like a much more uh, um, rounded views through the content that's surfaced up there. I love it. Yeah. But listen, I knew you and I would be able to talk for an hour easily. I actually look forward to catching up with you in person and having that cigar we talked about, right? Really appreciate you taking the time out today and spending it with us. And Manu, I'd love to hand back to you, my friend, because I know we're up on time. But before I hand back officially, I also want to thank everyone that's joined us today. Hopefully, between the discussion we've had, you can take one or two ideas back into your office and think about how you can actually embark on a journey of transformation in your offices. So back to you, Manu.
Thank you, Nicholas. I guess we are open to questions. But before that,
Oh,
I have a couple of questions, and maybe this was a very interesting fireside chat. And as you have mentioned, you guys could like continue like if there's a limit, I don't see there's a limit like that. But Abhishek, you have mentioned upon a very clear point on agentic AI, and especially from the last 1 decade, we have seen different evolutions of from starting from AI to generative AI to agentic AI. Nicholas, you can also add on to the topic, but from an Indian perspective, are we in the nascent stages, or do you think is there much work to be done, or is there anything happening? You can answer from your company's perspective, and maybe Nicholas, you can add some insights on what is ahead for agentic AI, because at the end of the day, that is also an autonomous intelligence that's driving loyalty and more personalization to the queries and the areas of engagement. So over to you guys.
Yeah, so I think you rightly said we are at the nascent stages yet, and that is more driven by the strategy which is being formulated and less by technology. So, like
mhm.
I mentioned, the organization's long-term view of where they want to be, how they want to use technology, what the manpower is trained on to use, everything what we discussed ties back to it. So yes, definitely at nascent stages, but the cost of experimentation has gone down significantly and the speed of experimentation has increased. So at now today, there was a time 1 year back when people were touting agentic AI, but it was very, very difficult to make AI agents. Today, like I said, you can watch a 3 hour YouTube video and make it yourself for your own personal use, right? So it's easier to get it done and it's cheaper to get it done. So experimentation is a lot easier, but a long-term view is something which needs to balance out of how it's going to be used and where it's going to be used in organization. Nicholas, to you.
I think you beautifully said it. I think we're definitely in the nascent stage, and that's not just in India, that's globally. As I look across the different markets I work within, obviously at Twilio, this is an area that we deliver capabilities, whether it's conversational AI through to our CDP offerings in enabling that. But one thing I think is really important is the strategy and vision that Abhishek you've talked about, right? Having that defined up front and creating a culture that of experimentation is going to be really critical, because it is you need a test, learn, adapt type mindset and approach, and ultimately, um, you know, because it's moving so quickly, you can't not afford to be leaning into this. Whether it's individually as an individual trying to figure out what we said earlier, what can I use AI for, or a business unit or a company. We all need to be experimenting and testing and learning on this. So I'm actually genuinely excited. I do feel that there's only upside. If I look at how customers are using our technology in this space, I'm seeing some really, really exciting use cases being deployed. But I think, again, Abhishek said it perfectly before. You've got to have that bigger vision, but start small, right? And use that as an incremental approach to then building out to that vision that you're trying to strive for. Yeah.
Nicholas, when you started, you mentioned that data being the new oil. And particularly when we look at it, it's not like sitting on tons of data doesn't mean any impact to us and doesn't give any right insights when you're not dealing it the right way. But again, because you deal with a lot of brands on a regular basis, if I were to ask you on where do most brands get stuck when using customer data? And how can they overcome it? Because now we are talking to Abhishek. He comes from a very basic, vast set of bucket of brands, but if I were to ask from a very basic Indian D2C perspective, how does brands overcome that kind of a problem and a dilemma that they face using the right customer data?
I mean, I'll just go quick with my answer. I actually see the biggest sticking point tends to be at a human level, i.e., business unit level. Functions not working together and putting the customer at the heart of that journey, often working in isolation. So stovepipes, silos are still one of the biggest inhibitor. Even for, if you, I'll give you a formula. There's a formula I love giving, and I'm not going to charge for this. It's saved me most probably millions of dollars over the years in different companies I've worked at. OP plus NT equals EOP. OP plus NT equals EOP. Old process plus new technology equals expensive old process. So you really need to start at the at the people process element and work back from there. And I think typically what stops really transformation from happening is that siloed nature of the way our companies are set up. Often that's sort of been in my experience in terms of companies I've worked for or worked with. Yeah. So Abhishek, I'm not sure if you've got a similar experience in that regards. Yeah.
I was trying to memorize your formula. So OP plus NT is equal to expensive OP. Yes?
Yeah, old process. Yeah, I'll share it later with you via email. But yeah, we used to have it on the wall as a touchstone for us to go back to and think about how do we use. Because again, what I find often is businesses buy technology like a diet pill. They want something quick to fix something, and they don't really put the work in to really understand what is the root cause of the problem they're trying to solve for. 9 times out of 10, it's a symptom. They're addressing a symptom and not the actual problem. So that's how I've used that formula in the past, and I do it with my teams now. I always come back. What is this? Are we trying to use technology as a shortcut, or are we actually addressing the problem we're trying to address? So yeah, back to you, mate.
Yeah, so very rightly said, and it's something I've experienced a lot. Yes, only I could not put it down in a formula. And this is I would say, the fear of technology, because we want to have a technology, but we do not want to change the ways of working. And that is the old process which we are referring to. Uh,
100%.
so this is the biggest challenge, and it goes to, I mean, talking about agentic AI, you want to automate and you want to do stuff, but what you're going to feed to that machine is still going to be the same old. It is not going to change. It is not going to evolve. So the results, it's old saying, garbage in, garbage out. That is the biggest challenge in organizations today, which is to be driven by change in ways of working. That how would we change stuff? And customer communication is one of the best examples. Customer segmentation is one of the best examples. You have the best tools today, but you still like to do 5 segments. Why won't you run 500 segments? Right? It
100%.
allows you to do so. Why? Because the old process tells you that, I just have to focus on five and I have to maximize these five, or it takes too much effort to create so many segments or monitor it and so on. One classic example which I've encountered a lot, the best tools for customer communication result give the same amount of results as a manual thing. So why is this? Because old process. Yeah.
100%. I love it. And I think unless if you don't feel uncomfortable with change you're driving, you're not really driving change. I love what you said, because that to me is such a truth, right? You need, to drive change, to innovate, you need to be pushing into a space that doesn't feel natural or comfortable, right? Yeah. Love it.
Thank you.
Since we don't have any questions as of now, and I just want to end on a quick rapid fire kind of a note. Nicholas, I'll start with you. I mean, you are, as you mentioned already in the past and in the earlier session, that you are yourself a technologist who's actually working on the domain of marketing. But if I were to ask you which particular technologies are genuinely driving better customer experience, you can also name the ones which are overhyped. But as a matter of fact, which ones are genuinely driving a better consumer experience?
Better consumer. I think as a consumer myself, or as a business person? As a
Both ways.
consumer,
I guess both ways it would be very insightful.
yeah, I think in terms of business, I think for me, in terms of how we're using some of our own technology, it's CDP. Like our ability to really get back to what Abhishek was saying earlier, really starting to segment our customers and understand who they are and target them in a more effective way has driven better outcomes for us, has enabled my team to be more tailored and starting to become more tailored in that respect. I think also as a consumer, dealing with brands that actually create I'll give you a really good example. Actually, I was in Hong Kong recently. I was at a bar with some friends. I'd given my card and I was sitting behind the counter. And the bar lady came up to me later saying, "Matt, sir, I've given your card to the wrong customer," because she'd made a mistake. And I'm with American Express, and I remember I went into the app and I could freeze the card, right? I didn't have to cancel it. I could freeze the card. Anyway, we got the card back. I could unfreeze it once I knew there was no fraud on it. That to me was a really good example of technology being deployed in a way that was created a utility and was easy and effortless and didn't it helped remove any anxiety that I might have had. So I think that was a really good use case of technology being used in a smart way for me as a consumer. What about you, Abhishek?
So I think for me, technology is about suggesting or showing me things before I know I need them.
Yeah.
And I see, and Substack is a great example because now that it's got a hang of what I'm reading, the the algorithm, what it's showing me in terms of the reading material or the things I am following has become significantly better. So I say, wow, I didn't know this. I wanted this, but I've got it. So it's about, if I were to bucket it, it's about personalization to scale.
Yeah.
And that is the holy grail. That is where the organization should be today for loyalty. Otherwise, very difficult to get customer loyalty. But the again, going back to ways of working, if you are personalized and if you want to show products, you have to make sure you have made them and stock them in the back as well.
Yeah.
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 So it's a whole organizational shift. But to me, that is the biggest technology, showcasing things which I need before I know I need them.
But I just want to pick up on that point. I know we're over time. I think it's such an important one you just raised because the front office and back office have to be working together in synchronization. Because at the end of the day, if you don't do that, you break your customer experience, right? So I think what you just said then was really important. And that gets back to removing the siloed nature of the way we organize. Think of the way I often phrase it is one customer, one experience, one enterprise, one experience. So one customer, one enterprise, one experience, everyone working together to deliver that. So I love what you just said then. It was a very good example. Yeah. Manu, back to you, mate. I think we're done,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we're done. We've done a lot of talking, and I guess it was very much interesting. If I would, because
Oh,
being a listener also, it adds up to the value. And maybe I didn't need to interrupt of Sunny to ask you any questions because it was very much smooth and very much going with the flow. So thank you, Abhishek, and thank you, Nicholas, for making this really interesting and interactive, as I would say. And on behalf of India Retailing and Images Group, thank you. And
thank you.
looking forward. And I guess we have actually we are actually acted as a bridge between you two guys, and we hope to see you as good friends in the future.
Oh, 100%. I look forward to meeting up in person soon.
Likewise, Nicholas.
Uh,
Looking forward to seeing you in person and carrying our conversation on. Thank
Yeah, for
you.
sure. Ciao,
Cheers.
ciao.
thank you so much, guys.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.